Hi, I'm Mary Beth Stapleton, Manager of Family and Community Partnerships for Harford County Public Schools. Thank you for joining us today for the Parent Academy virtual Real Talk on digital learning, how parents can support their children's learning with use of technology and digital tools. With me today is Dr. Martha Barwick, who is the Coordinator of Instructional Technology for Harford County Public Schools. Hi, Dr. Barwick.
Hi, Mary Beth. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for joining me today.
Sure.
This is such an important topic for parents right now as we are managing the COVID closure and all of that technology and learning that comes along with that. So before we get started, if you could share for parents your background in instructional technology and your expertise in this area.
Sure. I started my career as a fifth grade teacher, immediately interested in technology and how technology could enhance learning. Back those many years ago, there wasn't as much technology as there is today. I moved from that position into a position as a librarian. And again, my perspective was that of not only someone who loved books and encouraged students to read, but again, looking at technology and how technology could enhance learning in a school. And for 12 years, I've been in the Office of Technology with Harford County Public Schools, both as an instructional technology teacher specialist and as instructional technology coordinator. In those years, I have also received my doctorate in education from Johns Hopkins University, and that was with a specialty in online teaching and learning.
So I would say expertise for sure. Well, that's wonderful news. That's wonderful news for parents that we have folks like you at the helm who know how to do this. So that's good news.
Yes, possibly one thing that I could mention is that I'm also mom to Caleb, who's a kindergartner in Harford County Public Schools. So I also see the perspective of a parent in this situation we have found ourselves.
Wow, Caleb's first year. Which school does he go to?
He's at Hickory. He's a squirrel at Hickory Elementary.
Yay, squirrels. Awesome. Well, that's great. And that's good to know that we have, I think we all do, that work at the school system and are also parents. We wear those two hats sometimes and we kind of have both perspectives. So that's helpful for parents to know. Thank you for sharing that. So thinking about the work of the Instructional Technology Office, parents might not always be clear about what are you doing during the closure. So if you could kind of just describe what your office is doing right now to support the school system.
Sure. Well, first of all, let me tell you that our office is made up of 5, myself and 4 others, all from a teaching background except for one, and her role is really of a support specialist, and she's digging into back end and into problems and trying to solve those problems as quickly as possible so instruction can occur. So while she's doing that, myself as coordinator and the instructional technology teacher specialist, we're busy supporting teachers. So we are creating professional development. Much of that professional development during this time has come through video modules, demonstrating for teachers the how-to or the best practice using technology tools. One thing that we've emphasized to teachers during this time is how to use a playlist in its learning, so that students can quickly and efficiently access their materials through our learning management system of its learning. We've created presentations on how to use PowerPoint to create an asynchronous presentation. We have also, I know we're in a Teams meeting right now, and many of our teachers and parents are daily participating in many Teams meetings. We've modeled for teachers how to use Teams as a productivity tool, as well as how teachers can use Teams to interact with students and make that connection with their students and socially or to support learning.
So that face-to-face connection in addition to. That's wonderful. That's great. Well, thinking about, you've used that big old word, asynchronous. I don't think parents knew what asynchronous or synchronous or any of that was before all this started. So I think we're all learning together. So just to talk about what's the difference and is one better than the other? I mean, I think we're hearing a lot about this in the media and many different opinions. So just your thoughts.
I believe that both synchronous and asynchronous learning have advantages for the learner. So as we think about synchronous learning, we're thinking about where the learners, the teacher, the facilitator, they're together in one location. So what we're doing right now is synchronous learning. You and I are speaking face to face, but we're using a virtual platform to make that happen. So synchronous learning could happen in a brick and mortar building when we're all together in one location, or it can happen through a platform like this platform with a Teams meeting. You can see that benefit because we have the immediate interaction with each other, immediate feedback that we can send back and forth. In contrast, asynchronous learning is when the student can progress through the learning when they want, at the pace they want, and in the order they want. So the advantage of asynchronous learning is it provides the students some ownership in that. A student who might not raise their hand in class or raise their hand in a virtual meeting and contribute a response may feel comfortable in an asynchronous learning experience to email the teacher or post in a discussion board. So I think the combination of both synchronous and asynchronous give us the best distance learning experience.
Okay, so it's not either or, it is both and as a obviously you have your doctorate in this work. I mean, it's not just because you think so, it's because there's research around that, right? That there's a lot of proof that both work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Well, I think that's reassuring for parents to know. So you talked about different tools and different platforms when you spoke about both synchronous and asynchronous. Can you talk a little bit more about what's happening right now? And I know that work rapidly accelerated when we closed. And so thinking about those tools, what are some things that teachers are using now with their students?
Many teachers are using It's Learning. It's Learning has been our learning management system for many years. And again, It's Learning provides the opportunity for teachers to share content, but not only share content, but also establish interactive learning experiences. So whether it's through students submitting an assignment and a teacher providing feedback, or a student contributing to a discussion board and having another student piggyback on their answer and provide an enhancement. This It's Learning, our learning management system is a hub for learning, is a place where students and teachers can interact and hopefully interact deeply with content. Like I mentioned, we're really, as an instructional technology team, focused on using the playlist in It's Learning so that when the students arrive on their It's Learning course page, overview page, they have a start button. And our students know what to do when they see a start button, whether it's YouTube or whether it's in iTunes. They know to click the start button, and then that's going to take them through a series of content.
Well, if I can interrupt you for just a minute. So when you say that our students know to hit the start button, did they learn that in school before we closed? I mean, I'm guessing that they already had experience with this platform before school closed, correct?
Many did. Of course, we didn't have a one-to-one level of access before schools closed. So probably our grade 5, 6, and 8 students were most familiar with that because of their one-to-one level of access in their face-to-face classroom. But many teachers throughout our district did use It's Learning as a learning management system to support the digital learning that was happening in face-to-face settings.
Okay, well, that's good to know, I think. So folks know that we've been doing this for a long time. It's not like you just started with It's Learning. You've been doing it for a while. In fact, how many years? I mean, it's been a few years, right, since this management system was introduced?
Right, we go back to 2014 in a partnership with It's Learning.
Okay, great.
I also don't want to forget our Microsoft Office tools.
Okay.
I mentioned Teams, and Teams has allowed the video conferencing, which I feel like is a powerful piece of the tools that we've been using. There's an integration between Teams and It's Learning. So, for example, my son Caleb, his teacher sets up the class team meetings through It's Learning. So I log in to It's Learning and select the team meeting that he has established, and it passes me right through. So it's nice to see when those platforms can interrelate, so we don't have to send people to multiple platforms.
Oh, and that is good. Yeah. So it's one-stop shop.
And you'll also see teachers using web tools. Padlet comes to mind. Another way to both share content out, but then also have students interact and post videos, post responses, so the teacher can see their learning, even though they're not in a face-to-face setting.
Okay, well, that's great. And so you've talked a little bit about the learning management system, and we've talked about the tools. Um, are there help or guides on its learning? So if things are going smoothly, then all is well. But sometimes we hit a roadblock as parents, and there's frustration. So what do you do? How does a family address that if it happens?
My first resource that I would guide all parents to is a video that my colleague Alyssa King created. It's called It's Learning Navigation for Parents and Students, including tips and tricks. And I love the title of it because it's exactly that. And it is a wonderful resource to not only guide parents through navigating its learning, but it also helps with tips and tricks such as how to access Office 365, the Office applications. Each student has the ability to download the full Office client to his or her own computer, and all of those directions are there. So it's definitely a link I'll share out with you so that you can share it out through this video. If parents haven't seen it, it's a wonderful resource. The Office of Technology also has a user support team who is available through email, and we can also share that email out, who can support parents when they run into glitches.
Yeah, and it happens. But then as far as I know, for example, I've been overseeing the COVID emails, and when we get questions in and I forward them to user support, they get right back with families. So that's great to know for sure. So thinking about technology, learning at home and how students learn at home, it's not really the only way it's just a tool like anything else, right?
That is exactly right. And the superintendent has been talking about digital learning in some of the recent board meetings. And I love this quote that he shared. Technology is an enabler. Our focus must remain on meaningful content supported by effective instructional design. Devices and technology will only enable the opportunity to learn. Great instructional design and teaching will be at the heart of this work. And I think that quote is just really sums it up, that our focus is not on technology and only a series of activities in technology. Our focus is on learning, and technology can extend that learning, can facilitate that learning, but we want the focus on learning and cohesive instruction, not just on a device.
Right, and not just busy work, right? I mean, it has to be connected to, and to use this education word, standards, which basically means a goal, right? That we want our kids to have some kind of accomplishment to move their learning forward. It's not just to check a box and say we did some kind of activity today. So I'm just so reassured to hear that it's all important, not just technology, but also the distance learning. And I think that's something that the superintendent has tried to make clear, that distance learning and digital learning aren't necessarily the same thing, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
I see digital learning as an instructional practice using technology to strengthen a student's learning experience. So distance learning is definitely a part of that. But when we talk about distance learning, we're really referencing a physical separation of teachers and students. And then the technology is the way to facilitate student-teacher and student-student communication. So we can use those digital learning strategies we've been using for years and apply them to distance learning. But it changes slightly because we are not face-to-face. A teacher recently said to me around the conversation of her students needing some help in problem-solving technology, it's so easy when I'm in the classroom with them, I just naturally do it.
Yeah.
And so that distance learning separates us, and then we have to determine how to use the tools effectively to accomplish all of the things we were doing in the classroom, sometimes without even thinking about them, because it's just what teachers do.
Yeah, and they've been doing such a great job to pivot and to shift their work. So it's been amazing to see. So thinking about parents making sure that their children are experiencing growth through the digital learning, thinking about what are some, like you said, tips and tricks about making it the most effective experience for kids. Anything about what parents should do to kind of set up the home learning environment, or anything they can do to support their children with digital learning?
Yes, I have some hints.
Oh, great.
I always want to remind parents that technology is not always the best tool. So sometimes for my own kindergarten student, I've got to pull out some pennies and we're going to use those as counters. Or we're going to go out on the driveway and we're going to do sight words with chalk. So that technology is a wonderful facilitator of learning, but it's not the end. And we just spoke about that around Dr. Bolson's quote. So I also want to remind parents that sometimes a picture of learning or a picture representing learning is the best way for a teacher to see what the student is learning. So it doesn't always have to be a written response, but sometimes a photograph of what students are doing speaks widely for learning and representing learning. One of my other hints is to get organized, to have a dedicated workspace, have supplies, have devices, but also have all those other tools you need. Paper notebook, pens, markers, highlighters, all of those tools that we need to be learners. Another hint is have a schedule and stick to it. I know
yeah. That's hard to do with teenagers. It's a little easier with a kindergarten. I have a teenager, so but she's doing great.
For that teenager, it might be at a very unusual time of day.
Yeah.
But as long as they have a schedule and have the ability to access their resources, I think that's very important. And speaking of resources, I would always remind students and parents, don't be afraid to reach out to your teachers for help. Your teachers are there to support you. They want to support you. I've had teachers reach out to me, friends who are teachers, and just say, I long to support my students. That's what I want to do. My heart is that of a teacher, and I just want strategies so that I can connect with them, continue the relationships we had built through the year, and continue to support their learning.
Oh, and that's what I've heard too. I mean, teacher after teacher has said the same thing. It's really hard on them not to see them every day, all day. And that has just been the biggest challenge for them. So understood.
My last hint is just that to recognize that online learning is not easier learning. And that's a really big shift, because sometimes we as even adult learners think, oh, if it's online, I can quickly roll through it and it'll be easier. But often it's harder because you are in charge of your own learning, and that you've got to make that effort to reach out to resources, or to know when I've hit my limit and I need to ask a question or I need to ask for help. And again, I know our teachers are designing spaces and meetings and things like that to provide students the opportunity for that.
Yeah, and just to note that we talked about devices, and we are looking to really figure out how to make sure that all of our children have devices, obviously. So just to note that those that don't have devices are still learning for sure, and they have some learning packets and working with their teachers in different ways. So that's also important for our community to know for sure. So just thinking about moving forward, and to note that, we are working for those devices to be in the hands of every child, and not just devices, but we also have spots in our county. I live in North Hartford, I live in Jarrettsville, and I know up here there are many houses that just don't even have access. So we've gotten great partnerships with our libraries. We also have our parking lots available for families to access. But thinking about moving forward, can you speak to us about some plans, or what are some thoughts if, we have to continue perhaps next year, in maybe not all year, but portions of the year, in a distance or digital learning way?
Sure. I'm very excited to be a part of the superintendent's plan to move forward with a digital teaching and learning plan. And the goal of that plan really is to include a collective vision and a strategic approach to enable pursuit of our North Star, that every student graduate with college experience or career. And it's very exciting. We're evaluating everything that we do with technology. We're evaluating our systems and our tools and our approaches and our professional development, building on the foundation that's been made this year, changing things so that we can continue to address challenges that may confront us in the fall due to the COVID-19 crisis. so that we can continue to do what we've been talking about and enhance learning and ensure that every student can continue their learning experience, as well as ensure that teachers can leverage that power of technology. And so it's exciting to be a part of this plan, to be a part of the work, to use what we've done as a foundation in the past, but to move forward and to grow and to improve.
Great. Well, that's reassuring, I think, for parents to know that there are very smart people around the table figuring this out, or not around the table, let me be clear, around the computers. Nobody's at a table. We're all virtual right now. So thank you, Dr. Barwick. That's really good news. And I know that I think during the presentation that Dr. Bolson gave to the Board of Education, he is going to be reaching out to talk with parents and to talk with community stakeholders about, getting their input too into the plan as we move forward, correct?
Absolutely, that is correct. There's a significant part of that plan that involves stakeholder input, and stakeholder input's the best word for that.
Yeah, feedback,
I'm
for sure.
excited that parents and students will have an opportunity to share their voice and to share what has worked well and what has not worked for them. So again, we can improve and create even better learning experiences for our students.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so much for your work. I know you must have been working 24/7 in the very beginning when this all started to try to make sure everything was off and running as fast as it could be. So I'm sure you're exhausted, but
and a big shout out to the Instructional Technology team who has done the same. They have supported teachers day and night to help them do the best that they could do for their students.
Well, that's great. Thank you for everything. And thank you for joining for our Parent Academy Virtual Real Talk on digital learning with Dr. Barwick. We'll see you next time. Stay well.